Thank God for technology, right? So anyway, yes, I'm giving away 3 copies of the book. And other than that, the grand prize winner, I am going to do like an in-person Real Talk with Rachel Dawn. So we will do coffee, or if you're not local, then we can go over Facebook video or whatever. So JD is asking to join now. And we tested all this earlier and it worked great. So hopefully it still works great. Don't want to do that. Okay, JD's on with me.
Here we go.
Yay!
I'm going to hook you up here. All right, we are live, huh?
Yes, yes we are. And I am good. This is going to be real hilarious, you guys. So, what I was going to try to do for those of you watching from my writer page so that you can actually see JD was I'm going to play the video on my tablet, except it doesn't want to play. And then I was just going to set JD right here for you so you can at least see him. But yeah, so JD, I was telling everybody earlier that you are currently on a walkabout with God. And so tell us where you're talking from right now.
So I'm in Wauchula, Florida. You know,
Okay.
I decided a little while back to, well, a series of circumstances kind of brought about getting rid of I didn't really have a home that I owned at the time. I was renting from a friend of mine, but moved out of that, moved into a fifth-wheel travel trailer. Basically bought a truck to pull it, and wound up buying a camping membership. You know, kind of felt like I needed to do that for a few reasons. One, money. You know, I needed to, by going into the disability world, I needed to learn how to live on a little less money. And then also, you know, I wanted to be able, I didn't want to be stuck in a little 1-bedroom apartment somewhere, you know what I mean? Just kind of waiting for this big life event to take place. So, so that's what I'm doing here. You know, it's been good for me to be down in Florida, where the weather's been, you know, a lot warmer actually. They said it's real cold down here, but you know, it's been a cold winter. I don't think it's gotten below like 60. You know what I mean? For, you know, at least a high in a day or something like that. So it's not too bad.
Yeah, well, I know Florida's awesome. So I am trying to update everybody over on the writer page.
Okay.
We have a complete tech failure tonight. My tablet will not play the live video, even though it's right there. Like, it's not going to play it. So anybody watching here on my writer page, I'm super sorry. I put the link to my personal profile. If you just click on that, you can join us over there, and we'll just keep going live from over there. So I apologize about that, but I will see you guys over there.
Well, it's kind of a work in progress, right? You know,
I know.
And stuff. You know, you got your first guy
I know.
you know, but, you know, so, and unfortunately, I wasn't in the, you know, able to come to your place. So we probably wouldn't be able to make that work. So.
Yeah. So no big. So this is going to be awesome. So let me start over for you guys that are watching us here, because I kind of introed everything over on the writer page. So welcome everybody. This is Real Talk with Rachel Dawn, hashtag Real Talk with Rachel Dawn, episode 7. Tonight I'm calling this episode With My Last Breath, and really it's JD's story of finding out a lung diagnosis that he got, how that kind of catapulted him into purpose. So that's what we're going to be talking about, and really just kind of figuring some stuff out in life. So but don't forget, there's a giveaway going on tonight. So share this video and you'll get 5 points towards the contest. Most points wins. So there's already a couple people with a lot of points racked up so far. Julie Hackney shared the post, so she got 5 points. Gina Lowe has 58 points from invites to the event page. Amanda Melton has 44 points from invites, and then she shared the event as well, so she's at 46. Some other people that are really up there, but if you comment tonight on this video, it is 1 point each. 5 points for sharing the video while we're live, and 1 point for sharing the video after we're online. So definitely you can still rack up some points. I'm giving away 3 copies of my book, Now What? A Story of Broken Dreams and the God Who Restores Them. And then after that, the grand prize winner is getting like a live real talk chat with me. So it's gonna be awesome. But definitely share the video, like, comment. We'll try to do Q&A at the end if we can, with any comments that people throw down here, because I'm sure you guys are gonna have questions for JD. So JD, just kind of intro. I mean, like, let's just start with your story. Like, where were you, you know, a few years ago? How was life going? What were kind of the plans and how you saw the direction of your life going? And then, like, what was that news that you got? Tell us that story.
Well, first too, since this is going from your page, somehow my friends are seeing it too, and I didn't do anything. So
Yeah.
I just want to say hi to some of them. You know,
yeah, for sure.
I'm a big fan of Rachel's. Maybe we'll get into that, you know, at some point. But so, you know, happy to be here. Look, yeah, I mean, back in 2012, my dad's significant other, actually, I don't know if you can see, if you put your thumbs together like this with your nail bed together and your knuckles, there should be like some space between it. So if you do it right, see how you have a diamond shape, and then my thumbs don't touch, like they're rounded. That's called clubbing, right? And when your fingers club, they round off in the tips, and that happens to your feet and your toes, and that means you have a lung or a heart issue. And we know in my case it's a lung issue, but at the time I didn't even know that. Carol had told me that she was a nurse and saw my fingers and said, hey, you know, you've got something going on there, you should check it out. And I said, forget that, you know what I mean? I felt fine.
Right,
so,
right.
I didn't do anything. You know, about a year later, you know, things are going well at my job. You know, I'm not necessarily getting promoted, but I'm moving up, if you will, and you know, I'm doing pretty well there. You know, I feel like, you know, that's kind of part of my purpose was, you know, to move into that job. I had a job where I had my own company for a while and different things like that. And so it was cool to get in this company. You know, I was joined Crossroads in 2010. So really started working with the India projects and stuff, you know, come about 2012, 13. So starting to kind of really get involved over there. So, you know, really, I hate to say, things were going, they were kind of on a roll. You know what I mean? I was, you know, I felt like I was kind of living out my purpose, and, you know, just kind of going. Now, I got baptized. You know, I think I've been baptized about 5 times in my life over the course of it. You know what I mean? We could do a Now What series on that, right? But
that's so funny.
But you know, basically, you know, I wanted to make a public display of, you know, my following Christ, and so on April 24th, 2013, I did that, and you know, my mentor at the time, Don Jared, you know, actually, you know, gave me the dunk, and you know, we had some fun with that. You know, he said he kept me under there a little extra, you know what I mean, to wash away some of my sin, you know, as if it was more difficult for me. But yeah, so, and you know, so life's rolling. Shortly after, got a call. Somehow I don't know how to put do not disturb on my phone, you know what I mean? So, anyway, that's hilarious. So anywho, you know, I've always had this nagging cough. I smoked for 25 years. I'd given up by the time I went and really looked at this. You know, smoking for about 6.5 years. So I really, you know, but as an ex-smoker, if you have a little bit of a cough or something like that, you don't necessarily think anything's wrong. You just think, hey, you know, I smoked all those years, you know what I mean, and whatever. So, but I kept, you know, kind of getting this voice, right, after the baptism and so forth, you know, go get it checked out. So so I did, went to my family doctor. She took an x-ray. Then the x-ray turned in to go see a pulmonologist. The pulmonologist did some breathing tests and a CT scan to get a look at my lungs. And, so we saw some things there. And it turned out that I was only at the time, I guess, processing about 68% of the oxygen that I'm taking in, was getting in my bloodstream.
Right.
So, he posed me with a question, basically. What do you want to do? Do you want to, wait a year, and see how this goes? Or do you want to go see a surgeon and we'll send over the stuff we have and we'll see what, he has to say? And, I don't know, anybody that knows me, doing nothing is typically not something I do. You know what I mean? You sit around and wait. Like waiting a year was like, yeah, right. So I go to the surgeon, and it was a great trip, because it was one of those trips to where I'm sitting in the office with the surgeon, and he's talking to me about all this stuff. And he might as well just be like, womp, 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 you know what I mean? Right. And he was saying something about, we'll cut this and do that and, whatever. And I said, all right, and on my way out, I was going by the reception areas. Now, he's actually got a big waiting room. I don't know if he normally has a lot more people there, but, there's nobody there, you know what I mean? And I'm, kind of going by, and the nurse, I say to the nurse, hey, am I going to need to take any time off for this? Like a day or something like that. We're going to do it, like outpatient, And she said, well, you're looking to get the blah, 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 right? And I'm like, I guess. I mean, she said, let me go get the doctor again, And so I'm standing in the waiting room now. Yeah. Standing in the waiting room now, he comes to the door and he's like, yeah, we kind of went over this, we're going to go in and we're going to, collapse your lung and cut part of it out and, sew it back up. And he said, you'll be out, 2-3 weeks or whatever. And I'm like, 2-3 weeks? What are you talking about? You know what I mean? So that's when it kind of hit. It was like, hey, this is a little bit of a big deal. You know what I mean? We've got something going on here. And at the time, I was in really good shape. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm a little fat now, whatever. But I was like, kind of doing pretty. I was, looking good. And I actually said to him, just such an egotistical thing. Do people come in looking like me and need lung transplants? And he said, sometimes. You know what I mean? So we went and did it. Long story short on that, the result came back that I have usual interstitial pneumonitis. It's basically an idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Idiopathic meaning they don't really know how I got it. Pulmonary is lungs, fibrosis just means scarring. I saw Blake on there, whatever, I probably got it doing some tear down somewhere, when I was doing rack jobs and stuff when I had my own company. But who knows? It wouldn't do me any good to know. It doesn't change anything. Like if I knew where it came from, it's not like I'm really in the environment anymore that's causing it. So, at the beginning, we had really hoped that drugs and stuff would kind of arrest my symptoms, kind of keep it where it was. And if that was the case, then, it would have been a little bit difficult or something to kind of live the rest of my days with it. But, I was still able to play sports, and do some of the things. Now, couldn't quite go as long as I used to or something like that. But, so at the beginning it was really, and stop me anytime you want to like interject or whatever. I'm just going to keep going. All right. So, at the beginning it was kind of, you know, just my core group that was going with me. The visits, I think, started 6 months apart. Then they were like 3, you know, as things kind of got, and, you know, I'd actually forget that I had it, you know, because it's not something that I was necessarily at the time feeling or anything. And, you know, I could kind of feel a little bit, but, you know, but not really, not like now, you know. And just so I go back, and after 3 months or something, you know, the test results would be worse. My numbers went down, things like, you know, and I started thinking, oh God, you know, I mean, is this really happening? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like,
right.
It's like, you know, I was really kind of hoping it was just some sort of bad dream, you know what I mean? Whatever, we were just going to kind of keep rolling along. And
I think we call that denial.
Yeah, you know, I think when I first wrote to you about my story, kind of as we were kind of talking about it, I talked to you about the 5 stages of grief, and you know, I really feel like I've kind of gone through them and continue at times in different ways. You know what I mean? Flop around, but yeah, totally wanted to deny that I had it. You know what I mean? I'd get depressed and angry. You know, bargaining's one of my favorite things to do with God all the time. You know what I mean? Hey, if you do this, you know, give me this, I'll do this for you. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anywho, it took a full month to recover. Go ahead.
Yeah. So tell me, so the bottom line is, like, you get this diagnosis and it's bigger than you imagined. And so, like, now you've got to deal with this situation in your life. And the ultimate prognosis is, at this point, at least, like, from your understanding, you're going to have a double lung transplant at some point, and that's going to be major.
Well, that came to be. So somewhere around, you know, about, so my doctor had me go to the Cleveland Clinic, or the place that I chose, which was the Cleveland Clinic, to start getting evaluated for lung transplant. And that was in, and that basically came around a pretty bad time at work. I started struggling kind of toward the summer of 2016. And so, you know, that really kind of changed everything from that moment on. Once I got there, it became real. Like, it was like, okay, this deal isn't going away. This isn't something that we're going to, you know, skate out of, you know what I mean? Or somehow not have to deal with. And, you know, it's kind of a big deal, you know. I mean, I laugh because I'm like, you know, I think we can agree, you know, getting lungs replaced in your body, you know, it's kind of a big deal. So, you know, there's lots of things you think about, you know, that go through your head.
So, right. So let me ask you, so, because this is, I imagine a lot of people are thinking this, right? So, like, you are this good person, you're diving into your faith, you're doing things for God. I mean, you were in, like, working in mission work, you know what I mean, at that point. And you get this diagnosis. So what did that do to your faith at that point? I know you talked about going through the stages of grief and bargaining with God, but, like, tell me about, like, what did that feel like? What were your emotions? What were the things you were saying to God? Were you angry with God? Were you, hey, how the heck did this happen? Why is this happening? And like, how did you process that?
Man, I was just all over the place, Rachel. You know, one of the things with just this type of disease too, you know, I've read some books on, you know, I did wind up reading that F dying that you kind of, you know, showed me or whatever. And, you know, he had a heart attack, and, you know, a lot of those things are sudden, and they kind of drive you right into purpose. You know, this one has been one where I've just I've had to live with, you know, over the time. So nothing was, yes, every time I would go to the doctor and things would be worse, I started thinking, oh, come on, guy. You know what I mean? I would get mad. I would get mad at him.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'm like, hey, you know, we were doing some pretty good stuff, you know, but then again, you know, I think I've struggled because of my own other personal life choices that I've made and everything too. And so that had a lot to do with it. So, I mean, you know, you mentioned, you know, I'm a good person. I'm doing, you know, this work and everything, which, you know, yeah, I think I am in general. You know, I think that's really up to the who you would ask. You know what I mean? That knows me. You know how good I am or whatever. You know, I've actually struggled with that whole thought quite a bit. You know, to be honest with you. You know, am I a good man? Well, you know, I'd like to think so. I could point to a lot of things that would tell you I'm not such a good guy. You know what I mean? But this process really does, really for me, has made me look at life in a totally different way than I ever would have if I didn't have to go through the point. And so what are some of that stuff? Well, I don't think it's natural to really think about. I think everybody thinks about, you know, that they're gonna die or, you know, whatever, but it's not so immediate. You know what I mean? You don't really, you know, like when I found out the diagnosis, you go online and you find, you know, it's like 3 to 5 years. If you don't have something happen, you're going to be gone. Right. So that's kind of a tough thing to read.
Right.
But at the same token, we had found out early. You know, most people that have my type of disease don't find out until their 60s or maybe even 70s. So, so that was good, you know. So, I mean, I think God has been there all the time, you know what I mean? And we just kind of dealt with this thing together and, you know, and living as a Christian, right? Trying to, which I always say, I am a Christian. I belong to Christ. I'm just not always a very good one at times. So, you know, we talk about that or, you know, but, you know, so, you know, life would every once in a while. So if I was in a denial stage, I would just kind of run and gun as if nothing was going on. You know, I would kind of be like, hey, you know, we're just going to go as if nothing's happening and, you know, see what happens. And then, you know, I would crash and burn, which is kind of what you do when you try to do stuff like that, you know. So then I'd be like, okay, you know, I need people, I'm single, you know, so this whole process from, you know, getting ready to get listed and go through this process, being single is totally different than having a significant other or a wife or somebody that, you know, they can see will help you recover. I mean, one of the things people don't really think about this, but I could be denied the transplant because I don't have the team together to help me to recover. Right. So part of that,
the support system, right?
You know, So, you know, when I go there, so I've really had to rely on some of my friends, you know, the Oakleys, you know, God love them. Yeah, got my little picture of them over here, you know, Kerry Reno and, you know, his family, you know, Sean, you know, part of my men's group. You know, these are my parents, you know, my dad, you know, so, you know, it's been difficult to ask, you know what I mean? It's, you know, they're going to see you in a tough place. You know what I mean? So,
And that's a whole other piece I definitely want to get into is that, like, when you go through something, having to ask for help, that's a whole other thing, right? And we talked about that a little bit. But I want to back up to the part, first of all, when you talked about how you've struggled with the thought of like, well, you know, this diagnosis comes and it makes you think, well, I'm not that good of a person. And so to clarify, you're thinking like, you know, well, maybe it's something that I've done in my past that I brought this on myself. Maybe I deserve this. Maybe I've earned this, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you know, as much as anybody earns something like, no, I really can't say that. You know, I think I brought it on myself because I think we do as human beings, right? Just bring the bad, you know. I went in all those places and I wasn't putting on a mask. I mean, there was at times we were tearing down racking and so forth. You couldn't even see through the air, as if what we were breathing in didn't matter. Like it wasn't going to hurt. You know, I don't know about you or some of the other guys or whatever that might be watching, but you know, I didn't think I was going to die from anything that was going on in
Right.
there. You know what I mean? So, you know, for lack of a better word, it's just stupid. You know what I mean? I didn't do
Yeah.
a lot of the things that I should have done to protect myself.
Right.
And
right.
And so in that way, I feel like I brought it on myself.
Yes. Well, and I don't think that is, I don't think that's uncommon to men. I don't think that's uncommon to any of us, that we think we're invincible until we find out we're not, right? I mean, you can see it. The most obvious example in teenagers, right? Like, we can all watch teenagers and be like, oh my gosh, like, you're not going to live forever. Stop being so reckless.
Exactly.
But the reason I wanted to bring that up was because, you know, even in the Bible, like, there were people who went to Jesus and asked, hey, this person has this disease, or this person has this whatever, you know, well, is it because they sinned? Is it because their family sinned? And I know that it's really easy for us to get wrapped up in that thought process when something happens and we feel like, okay, God, like, you know, why is this happening? And and the enemy loves to come in and whisper those lies that, you know, it was you, and that you deserve this, and you earned this, and God isn't going to help you out of this. And that, I mean, that was happening literally all the way back in Bible times, you know. And I love it whenever I read stories in the Bible that are so applicable to real life today, right? Because that is definitely a thought pattern that I can get sucked down into, is, oh, did I bring this on myself? Is this a punishment? And obviously, like, our actions and our decisions don't come without consequences, like working in construction in bad air and not protecting your lungs. That there are going to be consequences for that. So certainly there are real life physical consequences in this earth, but I don't believe that no, I don't believe that God punishes people, you know, in the way that we can convince ourselves that we are being punished by God. So yeah, so I love that you pointed that out. There was something else that I wanted to hit on. Oh, yes. What I loved about what you said about how I feel like God was there all along. And this is something, like, I only thought about after you and I had talked, as I was prepping these questions and really thinking through your story. And you kind of already mentioned it. Like, I believe God was there with you the whole time as well. Like you said, in early diagnosis, like, the minute you were baptized, the Holy Spirit was going, hey, you need to go get your lungs checked out. You need to go have this looked into. This is something bigger than that. And those unctions, I believe, were God's way of protecting you and guiding you through this. And I feel like that's so comforting when we go through really life-altering situations where we feel like it's really hard to feel like you don't have any footing. It's really hard to feel like God isn't there with you, like he's abandoned you. But it's even just little things like that that help us find that comfort and are those reminders that no, he's there with us. He's walking through it with us.
Yeah.
And if you recognize those things, then you can find comfort in that. So I love that you pointed that out.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I almost think the question's better posed to maybe my men's group or some of my friends around me, you know, because kind of on the spot, even, you know, being asked that question, and we've talked about, I probably said some cool stuff to you another time. I can't think of a dang thing to say to you right now, but, you know, but I can recall, you know, being in plenty of groups, you know, with my men's group and so forth, to where we're talking about some stuff. And I just feel, you know, I mean, I was in some raunchy places, you know, while we're, you know, kind of, you know, I can remember a friend, you know, my friend Kerry, his sister wound up passing away. She had a liver transplant. She wound up having a heart attack. She got some cancer, you know, and she didn't want to go through everything that she needed to, you know, and we talked about that in her, in our group. You know, she wound up writing like a 9-page letter, you know what I mean, stating about why she wasn't doing stuff. And, you know, I remember having a totally different thought then than I do now. You know, so this was a couple of years ago, so I'm not quite where I'm at today, right? You know what I mean? And I think, well, you've got to try to do everything and make sure, you know what I mean? And then it was like, I started getting here, and it was like, I get it. You know what I mean? I get how it could just be so overwhelming, right? You know what I mean? That you're just like, all right, you know what I mean? I mean, I don't know what to, you know, say or do about it. I mean, the whole idea of it, you know, so we talked about, and I don't know if you're ready to go here or whatever, but, you know, so the lung transplant is big, you got to, you know, so somebody's going to die, right? So that I live. Now, not quite in the same way as Jesus, right? Now, you know, and I've come to, part of my walkabout down here has been about that very thing. You know, unlike Jesus died for me, you know, somebody else is going to die, and then I'm going to get part of their organs, right? Their lungs. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of a tough thing to wrap your head around. You know what I mean? I mean, at that point, when that takes place, my body is no longer my own, if it ever was, right? You know, so we could say, you know, should we have thought about it like that? Or whatever, you know, even just knowing it, just because Jesus actually died for us, right? And
exactly,
yeah, you know, but that doesn't seem to be how life goes, right? You know what I mean? We got our own brain, and you know, this whole thing of grace, and it's our body, right? We can really do whatever the hell we want with it, and you know, that kind of thing, and then it's like not true in a way, you know. So there's been lots of stuff around that, you know, and just the whole idea too of, you know, so what is my purpose? Why am I going to go through? You know, it's going to be a lot of pain. I'm going to have to put a lot of people out, you know, to help me recover. You know what I mean? You know, it can't be so that I just go and make another $1 million for, you know, my employer or something. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm like, if that's it, I do. I'm out. You know what I mean? I mean, take me, you know what I mean? Let me and my lungs go as far as they can, and we'll just poop out. But but that's turning out not to be the case. You know, I mean, I don't believe that is the case, right? So
that was the absolute most like mind-blowing, time-stopping thing that you said to me. You know, we were at lunch and you're telling me this story, and you said you had that realization of like, okay, in order for me to live, in order for me to get somebody else's lungs, like that person has to die. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, geez, like I didn't think about that. Yeah. And what a sobering fact that is, and how that makes you go, well, then I better do something damn worth it for, you know, do something with these lungs while I've got them. I better make their life worthwhile. Yeah. And so that it just woke you up to that reality, you know, shook you out of maybe your complacency. Yes, you were doing things for God. And I'm not ever saying that like we're not doing enough for God, and so he's going to give, you know what I mean? But like it did, it just allowed your eyes to be open to, okay, like there is more that I can be doing. I am created for a purpose. And it's bigger than just making another $1 million, like you said. And that's not a knock on your company. Your company is amazing. Yeah. And you could go back to work for them at this point. That's your plan, but it's got to be something more than that as well. Something with more purpose. And when you said that to me, I just thought, how funny, like that, just kind of like you said, that we don't all live like that all the time. Because in reality, friends, we're all dying all the time. Like every day that you live is one less day that you have left, whether, you know, no matter how long you're going to live, we're all dying. And so why don't we all live like that every day to make our lives count, and to think with that perspective of, I only have so many days left. What am I going to do with them? And, you know, maybe somebody didn't die to give us their lungs, but just like JD was talking about, you know, somebody did die for us to have freedom, to be able to have purpose, to be able to not have to die and go to hell. I mean, like, but here on this earth, there were so many things that Jesus died to give us here. And yeah, I mean, that is just such a life-altering perspective. Yeah, I mean, that's just like the craziest part about your story, the biggest takeaway that I want people to get.
It's difficult to get to that kind of on your own. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You know, it's like it's like, you know, we should think, I guess, in terms like that. But look, it's not natural, right? You know, because, you know, then you really have to think, well, what if, you know, I have a lung disease, and what if I was, somebody's gonna die and I was gonna get their lung. And what if, and those what ifs wind up being something that's totally, you can't quite make real enough. You know what I mean? To I guess act on or so yeah, I don't know. And I don't know. I think, it obviously it's happening, right? I don't really feel like I get to know what that purpose is all the time, though. You know what I mean? So one of the things, obviously you say, well, you're going to go kind of on a little walkabout. You're going to do this thing with God. You're going to come down. I've spent an awful lot of time alone. You know what I mean? Just kind of learning things and really doing a lot of stuff. And I was really hoping to kind of come out of this whole thing with, I see my purpose is very clear. Here's what I'm going to go do. I'm going to start doing this right away. And I'm a task-oriented guy, results-oriented guy. You know what I mean? I can throw a few outlines together, kind of, some bullet points, and we'll get moving. And it's not what happens. It's not what's going on. I mean, I don't really know, what I'm supposed to do exactly. Go through the process, suffer a little, you know what I mean? Try to show people, let people see who I am a little bit, the good and the bad, you know what I mean? It's going to be a little ugly. I watched one of the things I did was I really tried to find some video on, lung transplants and people who recover from them and things like that. There's not a lot of them that I found on YouTube that really show a whole lot, or, and I would imagine it's just kind of an ugly process. It's difficult. Sure. And everybody wants you to be upbeat and everything too. You know what I mean? A lot of times I feel like most of my time spent consoling other people from having to say sorry to me that I'm feeling bad. You know what I mean? Whatever. It's like, well, don't worry about it. It's okay. I get it,
Right.
But, so I don't know. I lost my train of thought there. Sometimes that.
No, that's okay. I have another question for you. So you were talking about how, you've had this revelation that, okay, God, there's got to be a bigger purpose for my life. And I want there to be a bigger purpose for my life. But God isn't showing you what all that is yet. So I'll go ahead and mention now, like, one of the things that you said to me is, I think that God is asking me to help you, Rachel, with, your platform and stuff like that. So that's a part of it, of course. But talk about, I'm going somewhere with this. So what I wanted to ask about is, why do you think it is that God isn't just giving you the whole big picture up front? Because I feel like I know the answer to that, and I know what God would be doing in me if this was my story. But like, what do you think that is? Why do you think that, he's kind of leading you day by day and he's making you wait to see what this is? What do you feel like he's developing in you? What are you learning? And then I would like it if you also told the story about how, like, you told me about how you felt that God called you to working together with me, but then maybe you didn't go after that right away. So talk about those things.
Maybe because I'd say no. You know what I mean? Yeah, I know. It's hard. I know this is going to sound shocking to you, Rachel, but I don't always do what I'm told to do. Even when God tells me to do it, right? So,
I don't know anybody else like that.
Yeah,
I don't.
I procrastinate. I don't really, I'm not quite always like, hey, God wants me to go do this. Right. There's some things that, frankly, I feel like I'm hearing, but I wouldn't want to really dare say what they are even right here, because they're too new and too scary for me. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I have some gifts, right, that I, can help people do something. I don't think I've really done very well with that gift, honestly. I've really tried to look out for myself more than anything else, and that really hasn't proven to be all that effective for me. You know what I mean? Right. So yeah, I mean, and I think, one of the things I even learned a few years back when I was really kind of involved with more what was going on at the church and everything else is that, and you know, I think I've grown up in this thing. There were other areas of my life which were all about helping other people and that kind of stuff, and I kind of would resist them as well. You know what I mean? So, so now, you know, it's more like, hey, you know, because that is really what this whole experience is about, right? You know, being here, and if you don't really have the other folks around, it doesn't really make it all that good, right? You know, I mean, I've spent a lot of time by myself. I probably would have had more fun if I was out socializing and doing more with you know what I mean, and everything else. At the same token, I don't really feel like I'm on vacation either. You know what I mean?
Right.
I came here because, you know, this is one of the moves I felt I had to make monetarily. This is one of the moves I felt like I needed to make to figure out some of this purpose. You know, it wasn't to, like, come to Florida to play golf. You know, I played a couple times, you know, whatever. I've learned some stuff, but that's not really what it was about. So, so yeah, maybe he's, you know, and I'm always really curious too, Rachel, and maybe sometime we'll talk about this. And if you've done this in other episodes, because I've tried to watch every one since I'm trying to help you, right? But, you know, how do we really hear from God? You know what I mean? You know, some people seem to like they're having some sort of conversation with them. And then, you know, I pretty much have to go and like get hit in the back of the head like that. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I got it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? All right, I guess I'll stop here, or, you know, say this, or,
yeah,
you know, whatever. So,
yeah.
I don't know if that's just my daft nature. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People have this too, but.
So, okay, so I will, so we can definitely talk about that, and we're coming up, we've been on for about 45 minutes, so I want to try to wrap up soon, because, you know, I'm trying to make videos shorter, but anyway, I'm not awesome at that.
There's no way, I talk way too dang much, Rachel, for us to, you know.
So, okay. So, what I see right now, and this is just as you were talking, this is kind of for you to maybe marinate on, and maybe some other people, if you're going through something and you're waiting on God to show you your purpose, and you're just going, okay, I want to do more. I feel like I know I'm supposed to do more, but, you know, like, what the heck am I supposed to do? And I'm just waiting here, and I don't, you know, I don't know what it is. Why aren't you talking? Just give me direction and I'll go. Like, I'm very much that person too. What I'm learning is that God has a purpose for making us wait. And especially for personalities like yours and mine, that's the biggest thing that he's doing in that, is he's teaching us to be reliant. Because if he showed us the whole plan and we had those bullet points, we would just go, and then we would just kind of put him on a shelf for a while, and then we got that done, right?
Yeah, and then go back, right? Say, hey, yeah.
Right. And so by making us wait, he's teaching us that daily dependence on him. And he's teaching us really how to hear from him. And that's what I'm seeing him do in my life. And it really, what he's doing right now in me is developing trust in me. Because I have that conversation with God all the time. I'm like, what am I supposed to do next? Like, okay, so like I've released my book, I'm building this platform. But what's the next step? And he withholds that information from me on purpose right now. Because if he just gave it to me again, I would go run with it and then check back in with him a year from now. And so he only gives me that next step at a time. And I feel like that's kind of cliche, and that's been preached a lot, that, you know, like just God, you just take the next step and then God will show you the rest. But it's so true. And the reason for that, I'm finding, is because I really, really, really had a problem trusting God. And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And as soon as I didn't have any other option but to wait and trust in him, it was revealed to me how really bad I am at that.
Yeah.
And so I think that might be part of it, that he might be trying to grow some of those things in you, some of that patience and that daily dependence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I would say about hearing with God, this is just totally, I'm in the middle of this too. Because certainly I believe there are seasons, like I have gone through seasons where I feel like God is silent to me. in those times I've learned, just because he's not speaking to me directly, he left his word for me. And so like he left a lot, he said a lot to us in there. And so I've gone and found that. That's kind of a lesson that I've learned in the past, and I've talked about that before. But right now what I'm learning, and it's exciting, is that, when I literally just wrote this in my prayer journal the other day because I was like praising God about it. When I show up regularly, I said, when I show up regularly, God, you teach me things regularly. You speak. Because since December, I've tried to, one of my habits for the new year, if you will, it's not even a resolution. It was just something that I had been wanting to work daily quiet time into my life. And sometimes I would be really good at it. Sometimes I wouldn't. I'm not a morning person. So like everybody's like, you got to get up an hour earlier. And I'm like, that's never going to happen for me. So I feel like I always do my time at night, and it's fine. And I would work it in a lot. But I went away over, the end of the year. I always take 2 weeks off to, really just kind of recharge and refresh and refocus. And in that period of time, it was so cool. I just told this story for the first time because I kind of looked back on it and saw what God did. I'm on vacation, right? And I'm not a morning person. Usually, if I don't set an alarm or anything, like my normal time to wake up is like 9:30, 10 o'clock, usually like right at 9:30. Well, the whole time I was on vacation, every single day, I would wake up at 8:30, like completely fully rested, not without an alarm, nothing. Like I would just wake up at 8:30 and be ready to get out of bed. And I thought it was really odd, but every single day what I would do is get up and go have my quiet time. And I'm like, I'll go have my quiet time for this hour and have my breakfast, and then like I'll go to the pool because I was in South Florida. And so like I said, it was something that happened naturally. It wasn't something that I even asked God for. It wasn't something that I prayed for, that I even knew to pray for. But I believe God literally just adjusted my biology to make me wake up an hour earlier every day so that I could spend that quiet time with him. Like he made that margin in my life for me, and I'm not tired. I'm not like nothing. And so that has continued since then. And I say all that to say, that's the revelation that I'm having, is when I feel like I'm not hearing from God, it's because I'm not spending time with him regularly, just being quiet. Like there is so much going on in our lives all the time, and there's just always noise. And I mean, you like you said, you've got time to be alone and to be with your thoughts right now. And so I think that's a wonderful opportunity for you. I'm sure you're taking advantage of it, but that's what I've learned, is that when I'm showing up every single day and just, like I sit down, I read my little Devo, I write some things in my prayer journal, and really like God just starts talking, like it's flowing like crazy, just pages and pages and pages of things that he's saying to me, and that I'm hearing, and that I'm getting out of the things that I'm reading. It's amazing. But that's what, like, that was the revelation that I had. Like when I show up regularly, you talk regularly. And if I go in those periods where I'm too busy and I'm letting too much noise be in my life, that's when I can't hear from him mostly. Right.
And then, and that's a discipline, right? That's it's kind of being a little more, like I said, you mentioned that I have this time, but yet, you know what I mean? I'll go through a day and I won't really meditate or whatever. And then at the end of the day, I'll be like, why didn't you sit down? It's not like I had something to do, I'm getting something from them, why don't I do it? Be obedient. You know what I mean, to what he says. And then I'm like, because I don't really want things to change, or, whatever, is going on. So the chatter gets going on in my head, but all the stuff that you just talked about is one of the things I think the folks that I see, a lot of folks that are my friends, and I'm glad that they were able to catch you. They can certainly find out from me what's going on, but I'm a big fan of yours. And this is, I believe, how you can really be, I think are going to be great for people kind of administering and, this type of ministry to people. You just have a way about you that's just some real talk, very authentic, and honest. And so
I keep it real.
that's why I want to help a little bit, you know what I mean? And do what I can do. I can't work. So, you know what I mean? That's one of the things, but I can, I think, still volunteer, and I still think and talk, and, you know, occasionally write an email. So, you know, so I'm happy to help, and I'm really happy we had time to chat tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, if anybody has any questions, definitely write in those. I've seen a lot of comments. You guys have been really engaging tonight, which is awesome. If you have any questions, you can write in with those. JD, I'm going to ask you a question while we wait in case there are any questions.
Okay.
So thinking of this whole thing about like your now what moment, obviously you read my book, but
right.
Are there any other books that you've read that you've really felt like God is talking to you through this, like that have helped you either move through those stages of grief and work through that, or are helping you kind of figure out purpose, or you know, anything along with what we've talked about? I know you've done a lot of study on healing and holistic health and things like that, but other than that, like within the topic that we're talking about, have you read anything? Because I always suggest books, so I just want to know if you had anything to recommend.
I really don't have anything that would apply to this, so to speak.
Okay.
Like I said, you know, the book on the F dying, you know what I mean, was one that, you know, I think I related to a bit, but it wasn't really about, you know, this per se, this topic, and he wasn't necessarily a Christian. You know, a lot of the folks that I've listened to and whatnot and tried to learn from, turns out a lot of them aren't necessarily Christians. You know what I mean? And so I don't know how to process that all the time. It's not like they don't know what they're talking about, you know what I mean, in some ways and everything else, but I can't help but think, oh, well, you know, is that line of thinking a little skewed because, you know, they don't believe in Christ, or they don't believe in God at all, or whatever. So maybe that's another, you know, but no, I don't necessarily. I did get a lot out of your book. I'm hoping at some point we could actually do a little reverse where I'm asking you questions about that, because I think it was an excellent book for even men to read. I can tell you that probably no chance in heck if I never really got to where I was trying to help you out, that I would have read it, right? You know, I probably would have just said I would, or, you know, whatever, because we're friends. But I've gotten a lot out of it, and I've really enjoyed it. Awesome. So I think men should read it. And, you know, if people don't know what it is, it's Now What? The story of broken dreams and how God restored them, right?
Yes, I just put a link to Amazon where you can go buy it in there for people. Well, good. So yes, my book, highly recommended. It's awesome. No, but really, the point of my book is I wanted to write it to where, you know, you did, and I even say this in the book, that I didn't want it just to apply to mid-20s divorcees, right? Like, I wanted the book to be universal, because I believe that everything that God taught me in that season was universal, that it doesn't matter what your now what moment is, whether it's a divorce or a miscarriage or job loss or a lung diagnosis, you know what I mean? Like whenever you get to that place in your life that you're like, what the heck am I supposed to do now, God? Like, then that can apply to you. And I feel like almost everybody's been through something like that.
Right.
So definitely yeah. And then also too, I know it's going to be backwards. If we were able to do the other live streaming on the computer, like I had planned, it was right ways. Anyway, this is called Choose Joy Because Happiness Isn't Enough by Kay Warren. And this is a book I read a few years ago. And I think a big part of when we go through something crazy that we don't quite understand and we're trying to navigate through it with God, it's really hard to keep gratitude in focus. You know, it's really hard just to think about like all the hard stuff and forget to focus on gratitude and for what you do have.
No doubt. I think that's really important. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the things that I think God's even showing me. I think he's showing me this over the course of my life. I'm just really getting hit with it again, that I haven't really put that out. It seems as though you really have to put out the stuff you want to, you know, become, or, you know, have kind of happen to you. You know, before, it's not like, I think I've always been waiting for this outside thing to happen. And then once it does, you know, now I'm going to be happier. Now I'm going to be joyous and free, you know, and all that stuff. And it's really never happened. So
Right, right. And what Kay's story is interesting. Kay Warren, for those of you who don't know, is the wife of Rick Warren, the pastor of Saddleback Church out in California, and he wrote The Purpose Driven Life. So like almost everybody's heard of that. But a lot of people don't know about their story is they actually had a son commit suicide a handful of years ago, and so that's kind of her story and dealing with that. And the whole point of the book is that it doesn't matter what you're going through, because we all do have things in life, but that joy is a choice that you get to make. And so she really coaches you on how to do that, how to keep it in perspective. And she also helps break down the difference between joy and happiness, because they're not the same thing. So if that's an area that you struggle with or you think that would be helpful, definitely recommend that book. It was a great read for me. But other than that, we didn't really get any questions. We had one guy, a friend of mine from high school, Andrew, was reaching out to you personally, so you can follow up with him. Loved connecting with you guys tonight. Next month, I'm going to have another guest on, another first-time guest. She's going to be telling her Now What story. And if you haven't read my book yet, her story is in my book, and I'm very, very excited to share her with you guys. But I'll post the dates and details soon. But other than that, we'll see you guys next time.
And that was some real chat with Rachel Dawn.
That was real. Bye, guys.